Okay, so we are going to start working on 3D shapes this week, starting today, Wednesday, January 13th. So those of you at home, you will not have this paper. We are putting this in our journals, math journals. So you need to have your math journal out at home, and you're going to be writing the shape name in your journal. You can draw a quick little picture if you want, but you don't have to have that. Those are kind of harder to draw than it would be a 2D shape. So at least have the shape name and then the attributes, how many faces, edges, and vertices. Have that written down in your math notebook because we will be using it throughout the week to look back at, okay? So first we need to talk about what is a face, an edge, and a vertice. Okay, you learned this in 2nd grade. So let's look at what a face is. The face is the flat surface of a solid, okay? So when I tell you to count the faces, what are you going to be counting, Bryson? The flat surfaces, okay? If it is curved, like a cone, we do not count that as a face, okay? It has to be a smooth, flat surface. Does that make sense? Okay.
What about the bottom of a cone?
The bottom of a cone is a face because it's flat. It's not curved, okay? But a sphere, it's all the way curved, right? It's like a ball. That is not a face, okay? Now, an edge. So if I tell you to count the edge, or all the edges, you're going to count the place where two faces meet. So when we're counting in class, we like to trace it. That would be your edge, 1 right there. And this would be an edge. Okay, all of these lines, that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so these dashed lines, what do they represent? They represent the ones that we can't see. Okay, we would be holding this and you wouldn't be able to see these. Okay. So edges are the lines. We would trace them to count them. Or as I did, I just kind of drew out to the side. That way I could see it. And vertices or vertex is the corners where 3 faces meet. So remember from 2nd grade, you probably circled or went like this with your pencil to count the vertices, the corners. Is that what y'all did in 2nd grade? Put little dots in the corners for your vertices. Okay, so that would be 1. There's a corner. There's a vertice, and you would go around counting all of those corners. Okay? All right. Is it all coming back to you from 2nd grade now?
Yes.
Okay, so let's look at the first shape, a sphere. So to spell it, we spell it S-P-H-E-R-E, sphere. But we don't pronounce the P. It's not a P sound. It's more of an F sound like phone. P-H. Okay, how many faces do you think a sphere has? Kelsey?
0.
0. How many edges do you think it has? Aaliyah? 0. And how many vertices? 0. Okay, next is the cone. Faces. How many faces do you think you see on this cone?
1.
1. Good. Okay, so it has 1 face, which is the bottom, and 1 curved surface, which is what wraps around that cone. Okay? Okay, edge. Edges.
No. 3.
Not 3, okay, because imagine you're holding a cone. If you guys want to go ahead and get in your baggie,
1.
we're going to hold our cone. And although we see lines here, are those actually edges on our cone?
No.
No. It's just trying to draw the cone. We have to draw lines to show the cone. Okay, so there's not 3. What would it be, Evangeline?
1.
1. Very good. This edge that wraps around the bottom. Okay. Okay, and a vertice is a little tricky on this one because although we do see a point, we don't count that. Because if you look back at our definition of a vertice, it is the corners where faces meet. Okay, well, we don't have enough faces to create a corner. Okay, so we actually call this a special name that's called an apex. Apex is kind of like where the curved surface makes a point. Okay, so we say 0 vertices, but it has 1 apex, and that's at the very top. Okay, not a vertice, an apex. Okay, because if you think about it, the vertice has to have edges that meet. Okay, and if these aren't edges, then this technically is not a vertice or vertex. Sorry. Okay, the next one, what do we call that? Kelsey? Cylinder. Cylinder. So there's a cylinder. It has 2 faces, the top and the bottom. Okay, how many edges? How many edges do you think that cylinder has? And if you want to get out your cylinder out of your baggie, we cannot count any edges around this part, the center part, right? Even though we see these lines, those are not edges because it's curved. Okay?
0.
Not 0. 2. Where it wraps around the top and the bottom, those create edges, okay? So 2 edges. Vertices. Remember, vertices is the corners where edges meet. Okay, do we see any edges that meet to form a corner? No. So 0 vertices. Okay, so there's your cylinder. 2 faces, the top and bottom, 2 edges here and here, 0 vertices. Okay, the next one, pyramid. And we actually call this a square pyramid because the base is a square. Yeah, in your baggie, you might have 2 different kinds of pyramids because pyramids can have different bottoms, bases. Okay, so see, this has a square on the bottom, so that's a square pyramid. Okay, well, this pyramid has what?
A rectangle.
Rectangle. That's not a rectangle.
It's a
Triangle. Okay, so there's all triangles to make this pyramid. Okay, but we're looking at the square pyramid. Okay. Okay, so faces. Here's where it starts to get where there's more to count. Okay, I want you to go ahead and try counting the faces of your pyramid. Tell me how many you get.
This one. Is this that one?
The square pyramid. How many faces, Kaylee?
5.
5, very good. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, the bottom. 5 faces. Edges. Sometimes edges are actually easier to count on paper. So I would take my pen and I would count the lines. So there's 1, 2, 3 in the back, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 edges. And vertices. Okay, so try counting the vertices. Vertices, you're going to be counting the corners where they meet. How many did you get, Allie?
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Very good, 5. Now this at the top, we do count a vertice instead of an apex because it does have edges that meet, okay? The cone did not have edges, okay? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 back in that corner. Okay, what is the next shape called? Y'all remember?
A rectangular prism.
Good, it's like a tissue box. So if you see a tissue box, most of them are going to be shaped like a rectangular prism.
They could be shaped as a dirty square.
Cute. I said that's why I said most of them, not all of them. Rectangular prism.
Rectangular prism.
Okay. So, if you're looking at the rectangular prism, it's going to have 6 faces. Go ahead and count them all. So here's my rectangular prism. You have the top and the bottom, that's 1 and 2. The left and the right, 3 and 4. The front and the back, 5 and 6. Okay? So 6 faces. Edges. Go ahead and count the edges.
Yes.
Okay, what is it? How many edges did you get?
12.
Oh, I hear 8. I hear 12. Let's count. Edges is the lines, right? So we need to count the lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 edges. Okay, vertices. Vertices, remember, are where the edges meet in the corners. So you're counting the corners. Did y'all already count that?
Yes.
What'd you get, Allie?
8.
8 vertices. Good. So we would count the corners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 vertices. Okay, and the last one is a cube. so what are the shapes of the faces of a cube? They're all what, Kelsey? But what shape are the faces? Squares, good. So the cube has faces that are all going to be equal because they're all made of squares. Okay? Now the cube is just like the rectangular prism, meaning it has the same amount of faces, vertices, and edges. Because all it is a rectangular prism, but made of squares. Okay? So all of the numbers will be the same. 6 faces, like a dice. There's 6 numbers on a dice, right? 12 edges and 8 vertices. Okay? Alright, now I'm going to let you pause real quick. We're going to cut around the edges of this and glue it in our math notebook. Those of you at home, you can just make sure you have all of these written down in your spiral. If you want to take a few minutes to draw a quick sketch of these, you can. Okay, now we're going to be looking in our books, page 505, volume 2. Okay? Just to do some practice problems over all these 3D shapes we just learned. So in case you didn't know, 3D stands for 3-dimensional because it has 3 dimensions: height, width, and length. Okay? So I want you to look at this wooden puppet over here. Which parts of the puppet are shaped like a rectangular prism? I want you to circle it with your pencil. Which parts are shaped like a rectangular prism? Okay, what do you think, Evangeline? Which parts are the rectangular prisms? His legs, good. Which parts are shaped like a triangular prism? We did not go over that on our sheet, but if you look down here, triangular prism looks kind of like what?
Rectangular
No, not really.
prism. A pyramid.
It looks kind of like a pyramid but stretched out. It also reminds me of a tent or like a rooftop. Okay? So look at a triangular prism and think of a tent, a rooftop, a stretched out pyramid. Allie?
The arms.
The arms. Good. So the triangular prism was the arms. Okay? Now let's take our pens or pencils and count the faces of the triangular prism. Faces.
It looks like you made an F on it.
That is an F. F for face. How many faces?
Pin. I think so.
Okay, we do have one of these in our baggies if you wanted to get it out. It's not as long as the picture showing.
So we're doing
Count the faces. So what would the face be? Aaliyah? The flat part. So there's 1,
5.
2, 3, 4, 5 on the bottom. Okay, if you were counting on your paper, 2 triangles and 3 rectangles, right? The right, the left, and the bottom. So 5 faces. Now let's count the edges. So if I'm going to count edges of this shape, what would I need to do?
Count the black parts.
Count the lines. Good, the black lines. So I like to trace or at least go right next to it so I can see my pen and count. Don't forget to count the top and the dashed lines. Okay, what'd you get, Kaylee? 6?
No, 9.
9. 9 was correct. Vertices. Vertices, we would count the corners. Evangeline?
6.
6. So if I'm going to do it on paper, if I didn't have this shape here to help me, I would just take my pencil and make a dot in the corners. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 vertices. Okay? Alright, flip the page. And we've already talked about all of this. We've already done faces, edges, vertices, so we don't need to do any of this section. So let's go and look at number 1. Name the solid figure that has the faces shown at the right. What do you think? It has 2 triangles and 3 rectangles. So that means it would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 faces. Aliyah, do you know? Very good. Triangular prism. It has 2 triangles and the 3 rectangles that we just counted. Okay. And down here, we don't need to write it. I mean, you can if you want. We're just going to name the solid figures out loud. What is this one?
Cylinder.
Cylinder. Kaylee, what's this one? Rectangular prism. This one?
Cone.
Cone. And the soccer ball?
Ooh, sphere.
Sphere. Good. Okay, I want you to try number 6 on your own.
Alright. I still need to start with
Just move on to number 6. Page 507. So you're counting the faces, edges, vertices, and tell me what shape this is. Okay, good. This is a cube. Faces, how many did we get?
6.
Very good. 6, like a dice. Edges,
12.
vertices,
8.
8. Very good. Okay, so here's where it starts getting a little bit more challenging. We just don't need to know what shape it is, but we also need to know how we can sort them. Okay, so think about a sphere. I want you to get that picture in your head. Think of a sphere. Think of a cone. And think of a cylinder. Think of those 3 shapes and write one way that you could sort them. If I were to group them together, what is a attribute that they all have in common? Sphere, cone, and cylinder. Do y'all know? Anybody have an idea? Well, let's look at the pictures of them. So it's this figure right here. So I can't say, well, they all have 0 faces, because that's not true. Here's the cone and the cylinder. We can't say they all have 0 edges or 1 edge. We can't say they all have, I guess you could all say they have 0 what? Vertices. Okay. Anything else?
0.
Very good, Kaylee. They all have rounded surfaces, or you could say curved surfaces. So you could say 0 vertices. You could also group them because they have curved surfaces. Okay? Now for 8, 9, and 10. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated too. You had to think a little bit harder. It says write all, some, or none to complete the sentence. So you need to figure out, does all of the faces of a cube have squares? Do some of the faces of a cube have squares? Or do none of the faces of a cube have squares? What do we think? What would go there? All of the faces of a cube are squares. Okay, number 9. I want you to read that to yourself and see what you think would go in there before we go over it. I'm going to take that away if you can't sit on it correctly. Allie, focus. Okay, we got it? What do you think? This table over here, all, some, or none?
Some.
Some, okay. Middle table? Some. And Bryson? Some. Some of the faces of a triangular prism are triangles. Good. Okay, last one. Read that to yourself and figure out what goes there. Got it? Kaylee? None. Okay, good. None of the faces of a rectangular prism is curved. Okay? Now, this is, y'all recognize this Venn diagram. We've done these before with the quadrilaterals. Okay? So let's look at this Venn diagram. We have on this side solid figures with flat surfaces. Over here, we have solid figures with curved surfaces. Why is this one in the middle?
Because it has
Evangeline?
Because it has both.
It has both. It has flat and curved. Okay? Now let's look at this cone. Where do you think the cone should go on the Venn diagram? Bryson, what do you think? Where do you think that cone would go? In the middle, he says. Do y'all agree? Do y'all agree?
Yes.
Yes, good, because it has a flat surface on the bottom, and then it's curved right here. So it would go right in the middle. Okay, almost done. You guys flip the page. And then I want you guys to try to do this one on your own. Okay? If you guys need shapes at home, see in class, you've been seeing me hold up these shapes. At home, you guys can go through your pantry, go through your toy box, and find shapes that might look like this at home. For example, you might have a dice from a board game you could use. You might have a can in your pantry to use, like a can of soup or a can of vegetables. A tissue box, a ball. This one might be the only one that's a little more challenging, the triangular prism, to count the faces, okay? But all of these you should be able to find something at home if you need it, okay? So go ahead and do 12, 13, and 14 on your own. Real quickly, let's look at this chart before you begin. Figures that stack. Do we understand what that means? For example, the cube. If I take a cube, would I be able to take another cube and stack it on top of this?
Yes.
Yes. So figures that stack mean I could stack them on top of each other and it won't roll off or fall off, okay? Figures that roll, figures with flat surfaces, curved surfaces, more than two faces. So you just list all of them, okay? So we've finished these problems in class, so now we're going to check them. For number 12, Scarlet and Violet take turns stacking blocks. They start with a cube. Next, Scarlet adds a cylinder. Violet puts a rectangular prism on top. Scarlet takes off the rectangular prism. She adds another cube. What does this structure look like? What did you guys get? Oh, yeah? A. Allie, what'd you get? A. Evangeline? A. Okay, so let's see. It says they start with a cube. So far that looks good. Next, Scarlet adds a cylinder. Cylinder's in the middle. Violet puts a rectangular prism on top, but Scarlet takes off the rectangular prism and adds another cube. So cube on top. A is correct. Okay, figures that stack. Which of these would be able to stack? Okay, I'll just go through in order and you tell me yes or no. This one?
Yes.
What shape is that?
It's a
No. Triangular prism. Okay. Can you stack cones?
No.
Cubes?
Yes.
Yes. Cylinders?
Yes.
Rectangular prisms?
Yes.
Can you stack spheres?
No.
No. Okay. Figures that roll. Can you roll triangular prism?
No.
A cone?
Yes.
Yes. Cube?
Yeah. No. No.
Cylinder?
Yes.
And what's the last one? Sphere. Figures with flat surfaces. Does this have flat surfaces?
Yes. Yes.
Cone?
No. Yes.
Yes. Cube?
Yes. Yes.
Cylinder? Rectangular prism?
No.
Sphere. So all of them except sphere. For just sake of saving time, I'm going to put all of them except sphere. Figures with curved surfaces, you should have put the cone, cylinder, and sphere. Figures with more than two faces, does this one? What do we call that? Triangular prism. Does this have more than two?
No.
No, it only has one. The cube?
Yes.
Yes. The cylinder? More than 2?
No.
No, it only has 2, the top and the bottom. Rectangular prism?
Yes.
Yes. Sphere?
No.
No. Okay, and the last one. Aaron drew the figure at the right. What solid figure did he draw? Bryson, what is that? Right here. Good. C, rectangular prism. All right, good. So what you guys are going to do now, you're going to tear this page out and complete that. And then I want you to do, this wouldn't take you very long, you're going to try to find the matches. And your job is to find shapes that are congruent. We learned about congruent shapes yesterday. Who can tell me what congruent means? Kelsey? Huh?
A shape that's the same.
Good. So congruent means same size, same shape. Okay, and then you just write the match on the line. So if put them in the bag and that won't happen. That's like the 4th time I've heard shapes go flinging across the floor. Maybe more than the 4th time. Put them in the bag. We're not using them. Okay, so we're going to find matches. Do we see a match for A? What would it be, Bryson? You see one? That's congruent. No, you don't see one. Kelsey?
K and B.
Oh, K and B. Well, I said A, but K and B. What do y'all think?
Yes.
Are they congruent?
Yes.
Yes. So you're going to put just K, comma, B on the line. That's all you need to do. Make sense?
Yes.
All right. So 2 things, workbook page and this. Both of these should not take you too long. If you have questions on this, please let me know. I'll come around and help you. If you finish at home early and you have extra time, I want you guys to make sure you're practicing your math facts. Tomorrow we will most likely have another time test over your 5s, so just be ready for that, okay?